So I work as the executive director of the Alaska Institute for Justice. We're the only nonprofit in actually the state that provides the services that we do. We were co-founded in 2005 to meet the critical needs of immigrants in our community. We started off as an immigration legal service provider, and our priority has always been to make sure that immigrants who are victims of crimes, particularly domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking, get the services that they need and know that they can contact the police and get police protection without being in fear of deportation. We just received a federal grant where we are going to be working now with the FBI and other community partners on human trafficking. Human trafficking is a huge issue in our community. I'm not going to talk about it tonight, but if you want more information about what you can do in our community to stop human trafficking, please contact my office. In 2007, we started a language interpreter center because we recognize that if you're limited English proficient, you have almost no ability to get access to any of the services in our community because almost none of our services are translated. And so we started the Language Interpreter Center with a huge amount of support from the Alaska court system, which also recognized that there was a huge gap in language access. And since that time, we have trained over 250 bilingual Alaskans, including people who speak Yupik and Inupiaq in 41 different languages. We have over 300 businesses getting access to those interpreters that we've trained, because obviously everybody who lives in our community deserves to get access to the legal, medical, and social services that they need. But tonight I'm not going to talk about any of that. So in 2007, I'm a lawyer, and I decided I was going to go back to graduate school because I've lived in Alaska for over 25 years, and I noticed that our environment was changing, and I'd heard about climate change, but you know what? I'm a lawyer and a critical thinker, and I didn't trust what the scientists were saying. I wanted to understand it myself. And so at the same time that I went back to graduate school, I actually got my PhD in December. There were communities in western Alaska that were being relocated because of thawing permafrost, decreased Arctic sea ice, which was causing accelerated rates of erosion. I've published a lot of articles about it. I speak internationally about it, and I am really concerned about climate change. And so I have a question for you. What do the communities of Tacloban in the Philippines, Manhattan, Denver, Colorado, the countries of Colombia and Pakistan, and Newtok, Alaska all have in common? So I hear being affected by climate change, which is true. Actually, the unifying factor... What? Excuse me? Unusual storms, yes, those are all true. But the thing that's really concerning is that every one of those places has been overwhelmed in their capacity to respond. And that should be a huge wake-up call for us living here in the Arctic, where it is warming twice as fast as the global average of what our community plan is. So just this past year, we have broken a number of records in regard to just weather here, right? So we had a blizzard in the middle of May, and then a week later we had a heat wave. And then in August, we had the most days of consecutive rain, and we just had the hottest October on record. So I'm concerned. And then in, the Philippines, right, 10 days ago, 195 mile per hour sustained winds. That should be really concerning to us, because I don't know if you've noticed, but the extreme wind events in Anchorage have absolutely increased. And I paid attention when, I think it was last spring, when we clocked 118 mile per hour gusts. So, and the Department of Defense is actually, really progressive on this, because they recognize here, not only here in Alaska, but nationally, that this is a huge issue. And so they are preparing for climate change impacts for the bases here in Anchorage. And what are we doing here in Anchorage? Nothing. So my plan for you as community council members is you need to educate people in your community councils to figure out what our climate change action plan is going to be. Our mayor needs to get resources so that we know what we're going to do when our water supply is impacted, our gas supply is impacted. There are huge issues that we need to be dealing with and thinking about, because the reality is this is not an easy, there are no easy answers, but we need to start having the conversations, because obviously climate change is accelerating and it's not going to go away. And so this is my last slide, actually. And so, these are just some of the things that I think about when I'm traveling around the world and these extreme weather events are happening, right? The flooding, what are we going to do with our infrastructure? Is our infrastructure able to withstand the wind events that are happening in our community? What about food security? The first speaker brought up our food security issue. That is really concerning about what we are going to do for food security, particularly if an extreme weather event happens during our winter time. And of course, there's the heat issue, and tied to all of this is language access. So I don't even know, if our municipality of Anchorage, when they're thinking about disasters and responding to disasters like an earthquake, if we have materials available in languages other than English, so that all the people in our community can get access to the services that they need. Thank you.